Imagine living next to a neighbor who thinks they can take whatever they want without consequences, stealing power, bending the rules, and treating everyone like they're beneath them. Now, what if the person you least expect becomes the one who teaches them the hardest lesson? In this story, a quiet engineer takes on an entitled neighbor with a serious power problem, and what starts as a small dispute turns into a full-blown battle of wits, justice, and pure electricity. Stick around, because what happens next is a shocking tale of revenge, community, and the unforgettable moment when the tables turn in the most satisfying way. Ready for the ride? Let's dive in. The crack of a spark pierced the night. A loud, sharp pop followed, and then the sweetest scream I had ever heard echoed from over the fence. Vanessa Reed, my entitled neighbor, wailed as if her prized designer boots had been set on fire. The truth? It was her son's ATV Charger that had ignited, and if anyone deserved it, it was her. You can't siphon power from an electrical engineer without expecting some kind of consequences. Not after I had warned her. Not after the HOA had brushed me off. And especially not after she laughed in my face, dismissing my concerns with a flippant, "It's just a little juice. Chill out." Oh, I chilled out all right. I chilled out by turning her backyard into an electrical masterpiece, flooding it with enough voltage to turn her fake ATV into a barbecue. But let's rewind for a moment. You need the full picture to understand how we got here, to this electrifying karmic moment. It didn't start with sparks. No, it began with a small blip on my energy monitor. I'm Ethan Carter, and I'm not just some guy with a toolbox and a grudge. I'm a systems engineer, an architect of power grids for data centers. Electricity is my playground. So when my solar inverter flagged odd energy drains during the quiet hours of the night, I took notice. Most people wouldn't have. But I'm wired differently. I live in a peaceful neighborhood where the neighbors brag about their perfectly trimmed lawns and their organic mulch. I keep to myself, tweaking my home systems, tracking all sorts of quirky anomalies. That week, something caught my eye. Every night, from 1 to 3 a.m., there was a 1.8 kilowatt hours dip that couldn't be explained by any of my appliances. No, not the AC, not the hot tub, not even my battery backup. Something outside was leaching power. My suspicion? Vanessa, the power vampire next door. She was everything you'd expect. Oversized sunglasses, a voice that could shake the windows, zero understanding of personal boundaries. She'd moved in 2 years ago after a messy divorce, trailing chaos wherever she went. Brunch hangovers, HOA rule bending. She somehow managed to dodge every penalty. She spent her time inventing neighborhood laws, wielding the HOA like it was her personal scepter. One time, she actually scolded a kid for skateboarding near her prize roses. Lately, she had become obsessed with a loud, garish electric ATV for her teenage son. It was big, it was tacky, and it was an absolute power hog. The first clue I had that she was involved in my power issues came while I was pruning some bushes. I saw a yellow extension cord snaking over my fence, disappearing behind my shed. No way, I thought. I don't have any outdoor outlets. But sure enough, that night I turned off every exterior breaker I could, except for one. The next morning, I checked the logs. At 2:12 a.m., the dip occurred again. I traced the extension cord. It was gone, retracted, but I'd taken photos. Time to talk. I rang her bell, keeping my voice calm. I hoped it was just a mistake, a misunderstanding. She answered the door wearing leggings and a sun hat, clutching a smoothie like she was a queen of suburbia. I asked her if her son had tapped into my power. She grinned, that smug, insufferable grin of hers. "Oh, that?" she said. "Yeah, we borrowed a little charge. Our garage panels are down. You got solar, right? You won't miss it." "That's theft," I shot back, "and it messes with my grid." She patted my arm like I was some sort of nervous child. "Relax, tech guy. It's not like we're hot wiring your car." I left, seething with frustration, but my mind was already working. I reported it to the HOA, expecting them to do something. Instead, 3 days later, I got a letter. It warned me about my hostile neighbor conduct and unsafe fence modifications. Apparently, Vanessa had turned the situation around, claiming I had rigged traps to shock her family. I was stunned. She'd flipped it. She had plugged herself into my world. Now, game on. She didn't know who she was dealing with. I designed backup grids for hospitals using nothing but scraps and caffeine. She thought I was just some nerd with a few panels. She didn't know that I could turn her joy ride into a flaming wreck. That night, I got to work. I sketched out a plan, a trap, a decoy outlet legal and safe, but brutal to any overzealous chargers. I installed it on my side of the fence, positioned to look neglected, but wired to a surge circuit. It would fry anything pulling more than 3 amps. My home gear was safe. Her son's ATV charger? Doomed. 3 nights later, the cord returned. At exactly 2:17 a.m., my log spiked. A blue flash illuminated my shed, followed by a loud pop. The ATV charger was done. The smell of burning plastic filled the air. Vanessa's shriek echoed through the night as I stood there, grinning wide. But this was just the beginning. The next morning, Vanessa came storming around, shouting about sabotage, calling for officials to investigate. I calmly sipped my coffee, watching her from my window. The cord was gone, her ATV was covered, and her little stunt had failed. But she didn't learn. Oh no, she escalated things. An HOA lackey named Miles showed up, clipboard in hand. "You can't rig outlets on shared lines," he barked, citing all sorts of rules Vanessa had twisted to her advantage. I didn't flinch. I explained that it was my property, and everything was code compliant. I didn't mention the surge loop. Safe for people, lethal for thieves. He scribbled something on his clipboard, muttering about reviews. I offered him a muffin. He declined. But Vanessa doubled down, and I was more than ready. I wasn't petty, but I was precise. I upgraded my trap, added a data logger disguise and a birdhouse that would alert my phone to any excessive draws. I installed cameras, both in my shed and covering her yard, all cloud-backed, and I rigged the decoy cord to fry if yanked. For nights later, at 1:42 a.m., my phone buzzed alerts. 2.7 kilowatt-hours of power had been drawn. Surge protection tripped, and my feed lit up with a flash and a spark. The ATV, once again, was left gasping in smoke. Her son fumbled to unplug it, but it was too late. I captured everything on camera. I took screenshots and sent them to the HOA. Clara, the desk clerk, looked at the evidence with wide eyes. She plugged in without asking. Twice, I pointed out. She frowned. Vanessa had her allies, but that didn't matter now. Remove outlets to de-escalate, Clara suggested. This HOA might find mailbox hues, but ignores her stealing. I wasn't backing down. Enforce your own rules, or I'll take it to city. Clara was silent, but I knew I had her. I left, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. That night, Vanessa pounded on my door, furious. "What did you do to my ATV?" she demanded. "No clue," I said, cool as ice. "Your son's traumatized. Maybe stop stealing power." She threatened a lawsuit. I flashed her my logs, then shut the door in her face. She didn't knock again. But I knew it wouldn't be the last time. 3 days later, Officer Hayes showed up, and that was just the beginning of a much bigger fight. The situation had escalated to the point where Vanessa claimed I had rigged a death trap. I wasn't worried. I had evidence. Footage, logs, schematics. Everything was legal, safe, and clearly proof that her theft was nothing short of blatant. Officer Hayes chuckled when he saw the records. "Theft. Plain and simple. You're solid," he said before heading out. But across the street, Vanessa stood, glaring at me with fire in her eyes, daring me to make a move. I stayed cool, knowing bigger moves were brewing. It didn't take long for the HOA to strike back, mailing me a $500 fine for hazardous installations. But I wasn't about to let this slide. I countered with my evidence. Photos, videos, logs, and a CC'd letter to the city and utility board. As the dust settled, more neighbors started approaching me. Luke, the fancy grill owner, Ellen, who lived next door, the Patels, who ran the catering business. They had all noticed the strange power dips. Luke's fridge had warmed overnight, Ellen's lights had reset, and the Patels had lost a freezer full of food. "Vanessa asked to use your outlets, didn't she?" I asked. Bingo! They had all felt the drain. We gathered over coffee, watched the tapes, laughed, and by dusk, our little group had grown to 23 members strong. We'd tapped into half the block's garden ports, RV hookups, and lockdown outlets, setting up decoys like I had before. When the HOA meeting rolled around, we were ready. Vanessa was there, of course, trying to deflect the truth with cries of exaggeration and jealousy. But then Neil, her ally in all of this, started to squirm. We showed the bills, the logs, everything. Her ATV had spiked the power costs, and she couldn't deny it. She screamed about community power as the room roared back in anger. Neil couldn't save her now. Her privileges were suspended and fines loomed. The truth about how she had been running her parties on stolen juice came crashing down. I sent the data to utility board. 3,000 kilowatt hours stolen, amounting to $1,800 owed. An investigation was launched, and Vanessa ignored their inspection notice, which led to subpoena. Neighbors cheered. It felt like a wave of vindication had hit. The HOA had ousted their cronies and elected Gina, a firefighter who banned utility theft outright. Vanessa's yard, once alive with the sounds of parties and laughter, fell silent. The ATV was sold, her parties were dead, and her son was seen mowing lawns to make ends meet. But Vanessa wasn't finished. One day, she tried to make a comeback, showing up in a loud tracksuit, blasting music as she posed with flowers in her yard. No one took the bait. The days of her entitlement were over. Then she came to me, quiet, tired. "I messed up," she said. "It's never harmless, taking what's not yours." I looked at her and simply said, "I know." She nodded and left, but I didn't fully buy her apology. Maybe she had learned. Maybe not. That night, my porch was calm. Tea in hand. The sun was setting, and for the first time in a long while, there were no spikes, no cords, just peace. I watched as neighbors waved. Kids biked down the street, and Vanessa's reign of power over the neighborhood was finally unplugged for good. Sometimes, the power of standing your ground isn't just about being right. It's about the community you build, the allies you find along the way, and the satisfaction of seeing justice unfold. But for Vanessa, the lesson was clear. You can't take what isn't yours without facing the consequences. And as for me, I'll keep my porch peaceful, my grid secure, and my neighbors close. You just never know when you'll need them. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe for more stories of justice, drama, and the kind of satisfaction that only comes from standing up for what's right. See you in the next one.